Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Executive at the Bio CEO and Investor Conference in New York, Times Square. I'm very excited to be joined today by Vlad Vitoc from MAIA Biotechnology. Vlad, absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be here.
We'll definitely get into what happened last year as you guys had a big year. But want to first, if you don't mind, just explain a little bit about MAIA Biotechnology. What is your team is doing and what are you focused on?
Sure. So MAIA Biotech is an extraordinary company. It's the maker of the first telomere targeting agent program in the world. Our first compound, our lead compound, TIO, is now in the clinic. It's in a phase 2 go-to-market trial in non-small cell lung cancer. And we are advancing a pipeline of compounds. The first two follow-on, next generation, were announced a couple of weeks ago.
Just 4 weeks ago?
Yes,
okay.
A couple of weeks.
And you said you're in phase 2 clinical trials or just entering?
Yes.
Okay. And then last year was obviously a big year for the company. You IPO'd in a market that many people decided, not to IPO. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you decided ultimately to go through with the IPO?
Yes. So the IPO is a way to raise money for us. It's in our investor base is a very long-term investor base. They're not looking to exit in an IPO. They're looking to come in more.
Yeah.
We raised the capital in the IPO that takes us past the first 2 inflection points. The safety data, which is going to be available very soon, and then the preliminary efficacy data, response rates in the first 20 to 30 patients, which should become available in Q3, Q4 this year.
And last year was a pretty tough market, and generally in the public markets and the private markets too. Why did you ultimately decide to still do an IPO when a lot of people did actually hold back?
To raise the $10 million that takes us past this, that was the only rationale to do it. It was a tough market indeed.
And clearly it worked. You were able to raise the capital, and it was one of the successful IPOs, and now you'll continually raise money going forward. How does your company change once you IPO? Does anything change internally for you? How do the dynamics change?
So the company, with those funds, we have immediately amplified the operations. We started opening up many more sites. We now have a target of 30, almost, I believe about 15 or so are already open and active.
Wow.
In Australia, in Europe, later this year, we'll bring it to the States. We onboarded a number of employees that were evolving as consultants up to that point. So now these became full-time positions. And so the company is on a very good momentum.
And so a lot probably does, it sounds like, change with the IPO. Is there a different type of organization you kind of have to run now that you're a public company besides the actual growth of it, or does not a lot change with that?
Yes, there are reporting requirements that add to the complexity. But we have a very good finance team, and they take good care of it effectively.
Yeah, so that you don't have to do it. You have a great CFO.
Yes.
Yeah. As you go into phase 2, I'm sure that there's a lot of work ahead of that, obviously, to go into phase 3 eventually, then commercialization. What's your vision for the company? You can't make any promises, I'm sure, because of SEC. But what's your vision ultimately for MAIA Biotechnology?
Yes. So. First, this trial that we have started, it's called TIO 101 in non-small cell lung cancer. In this trial, we test TIO in sequential combination with Libtayo of Regeneron. The trial has 3 parts. Part A is a safety lead-in. Part B is dose selection, efficacy and dose selection, in which we test 3 different doses. And Part C is registration. This is a go-to-market trial for accelerated approval in the US and Europe. So we see this on track for the first accelerated approval by 2025 in the US and 2026 in Europe. It will be an accelerated conditional approval, so it will require a phase 3 follow-up, which we plan to open next year as well. And that's how we take it to non-small cell lung cancer. The second trial we have is TIO 102. TIO 102 is a modern design of basket with umbrellas. it starts with a basket of 4 different cohorts: small cell lung cancer, colorectal, and hepatocellular carcinoma. And the fourth is solid tumors, telomerase positive, any tumors, which serves as a signal generation arm. So from the second trial, which is to begin this year, in this one we will test 3 different checkpoint inhibitors in combination with TIO, with the objective to select the best by tumor type, and then expand that into accelerated approval arms.
Yeah.
So this trial should give us 9 plus shots on goal, plus non-small cell lung cancer, that makes 10. It's rare for a company at this stage to have this many. I haven't heard. Most companies have 1 shot on goal. We have 10 already.
It's incredible. And the company hasn't been around that long, and yet you've IPO'd and now you have 10 shots on goal. What do you attribute that to? How have you been able to do it so quickly?
Well, first, we have an excellent team. Second, we have an asset that is absolutely remarkable in TIO. It's proven to be curative in preclinical setting when used in combination with checkpoint inhibitors in multiple tumor types at a very safe dose. So orders of magnitude under the maximum tolerated dose. And it has broad applicability in many tumor types. It works in any cell that is telomerase positive. Cancer cells, in aggregate, 85% are telomerase positive. Normal cells, under 1% are telomerase positive.
It's incredible.
So this makes TIO specific to cancer versus normal cells.
Yeah.
But it doesn't confine it to a limited target. The target is broadly applicable.
Yeah. And your background, how did this all come about? How did the company start? How did the thesis, where did it come from?
So I founded a company in 2018 with the licensing of TIO from University of Texas. And at the time, TIO was characterized as a telomere targeting agent. Later in 2019, further tests showed its immunogenic effect that made it curative when you use it with checkpoint inhibitors.
Yeah.
So that led then to the agreement with Regeneron for the TIO 101 trial and then further funding.
And I want to talk about your role a little bit as the CEO. I'm sure it changes as the company grows. What do you see your main priorities right now as the CEO, being in phase 2 clinical trials?
So we have the main priorities are to execute on TIO 101 and TIO 102 for this year. And also to complete, once we get to the response rates, efficacy results in the fall, to execute the next round of raise at a much higher valuation with a very small dilution, but to raise enough capital to then take it to all the way to commercialization. At that point, I think we're going to be set to hit the market.
And so it's probably a decent amount of recruiting, raising capital, and I'm sure managing the team towards that goal.
Exactly.
And as you look to hire people, I'm sure you're hiring quite a few people in those roles. What are you looking for? What kind of skill sets do you really look for in people to make sure they're a good fit for MAIA?
Most importantly, what you want is capable people. Capable at what they do, confirmed in the industry, but also hungry and also projectable. So these are the type of people I'm looking for by each of the lines of business, and we've been diligently finding them. So I think we have a very capable team right now.
And I think one of the things you said was projectable.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Projectable, I mean by that someone who is open to wear many hats, and also evolve with the company further. It's you see someone who looks at progress in their career. They're looking hungry for their career progress. That to me means projectable.
And they're adaptive to different situations that can grow if you as part of the company.
Adaptability is key. There are new situations every day here.
Yeah, you have to manage probably a lot of different personalities, I'm sure, too.
Yes.
Through your career, there are, I'm sure, a lot of life lessons, and there's some of what not to do. Is there anything you look back at and you say, I really learned a valuable lesson of what not to do in a business that you could share?
Lessons of what not to do.
Right.
What not to do.
Or maybe something that's contrary, right? Or maybe it seems people assume is the right way to go about a business, but you learned the opposite.
Yeah. So, lessons of what not to do. One thing, what I'm very crystal clear about not to do is to not select compounds that are already in a category that is full. So, for instance, I would not develop the next checkpoint inhibitor. I will not develop the next PARP inhibitor. What I want is novel mechanism of action therapies. And that's what we are working on right now. TIO is a novel mechanism of action, telomere targeting, and immunogenic effect. This is one of its kind right now. Certainly, it's accompanied by two more that have been announced 2 weeks ago.
So creating something so new that's just not on the market at all.
Yes. Yeah. New is far more important than established.
Yeah. And as as a CEO, is there any advice that you have that has really helped you in your career as the CEO of a life science company? Is there any advice for you as the CEO of the company that you've gotten in the past that's really helped you in your career?
As a CEO of the company, so I think one of the key advices is that the job of the CEO is to fund the company, among many others. Of course, you wear all of the hats as you started as a founder, and then you pass some of the hats to others that join the team along the way. But the 80% of the time of the CEO is to raise capital. And for people who think it's different, then they need to hire someone who can raise the capital. This is the most important thing in an early stage company, is to create a value proposition, start it, and raise capital.
It's the oxygen, right?
It's the oxygen.
It's the oxygen of your business.
Yes.
Well, Vlad, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing about MAIA Biotechnology. You've already IPO'd, but I know there's a long road ahead, and that was one big milestone, I'm sure, as part of MAIA. So really excited and appreciate you being on.
Thank you. It's great to be here today.
Thanks, Vlad.